The massive screens in Earth's Global Defense Command Center flickered with an unexpected signal. The room fell silent as Admiral Marcus Stone watched the incoming transmission. His weathered face, marked by 30 years of military service, remained steady despite the gravity of the moment. Humanity's greatest fear had finally come true. They were no longer alone in the universe. The Empire's first message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. Their transmission technology was far beyond anything Earth had seen before, easily breaking through all known security protocols. The message appeared simultaneously on every screen and communication device across the planet. "Your primitive civilization has been noted," the message read in perfect English. "Our sensors detect a single warship under construction. One ship. Your species is hardly worth conquering." Admiral Stone's grip tightened on his coffee mug, but his expression never changed. Around him, the command center buzzed with controlled panic as officers rushed to their stations. The massive underground facility, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, had trained for this moment for decades, but no one had expected the first contact to be so insulting. "Sir," Lieutenant Robert Wilson called from his monitoring station, "we're detecting multiple scan attempts from beyond Mars orbit. They're trying to analyze our defenses." Stone nodded slowly. "Let them look," he said, his voice carrying across the now silent room. "Let them see exactly what we want them to see." On the main screen, a live feed showed the Empire's long-range scans focusing on the EDF Defiant, humanity's first and only interstellar warship. The massive vessel floated in its orbital construction dock, its hull only partially complete. To any observer, it would appear primitive, almost laughably so compared to the Empire's vast fleets. But that was exactly what they wanted. In a secure chamber 50 levels below the command center, Dr. Alice Turner watched the same feed with a slight smile. Around her, the quantum cannon's core pulsed with a soft blue light, its revolutionary technology hidden from the Empire's prodding scans by layers of simple steel and concrete. The Empire's arrogance had never considered that a primitive race might use their own building materials as a shield. "The quantum signature is stable," one of her technicians reported. "They can scan all they want. All they'll see is a basic plasma reactor." Back in the command center, Admiral Stone watched as more data poured in about the Empire. Their transmissions, meant to intimidate, revealed more about them than they knew. Each message, each scan, told Earth's analysts more about their technology, their tactics, and most importantly, their weaknesses. "Sir," Wilson called out again, "they're broadcasting another message. This one's different." The Empire's second transmission filled the screens. This time, it showed their mighty fleet, thousands of warships stretching across the void. The message was clear: resistance would be futile. But Admiral Stone saw something else. In the footage of their fleet, he noticed their formation, their positioning, their reliance on energy shields that glowed like bright halos around each ship, every vessel protected by the same technology, the same predictable patterns, the same vulnerability. "Send them our response," Stone ordered, his voice calm but firm. "Sir," Wilson hesitated. "The planned response." "Yes, Lieutenant," just those 3 words. Across the vast distance of space, Earth's message traveled to the Empire's fleet. Simple, direct, clear. You were warned. As the message was sent, Stone turned to face the huge windows overlooking the underground hangar where dozens of primitive missiles waited. Their outer shells were crude steel and aluminum, materials so basic the Empire's scans would barely register them. But inside each one waited cores of quantum technology that would turn the Empire's own shields against them. Let them mock Earth's single warship. Let them laugh at humanity's primitive technology. Let them come with their vast fleet and their identical shields and their predictable tactics. Earth would be ready. And the Empire would learn why humans had chosen to build just one warship. Because sometimes one was all you needed. Deep within the Colorado Mountain Complex, Captain Jane Reynolds stood before the gathered military leadership of Earth. The underground chamber, known as the War Room, held representatives from every major nation. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. "Captain Reynolds," Admiral Stone began, his voice echoing in the vast chamber, "you've been chosen to command the EDF Defiant. Do you understand what this means?" Jane straightened her back, her brown hair tied neatly in a regulation bun. "Yes, sir. I understand that I'll be commanding Earth's only warship against an empire that finds us amusing." A slight smile crossed her face. "I look forward to changing their opinion." The gathered leaders murmured among themselves. Some had opposed choosing a relatively young captain for humanity's most important mission. But Jane's unconventional thinking and perfect combat simulation scores had won them over. Dr. Turner stepped forward, activating a holographic display in the center of the room. "The Empire doesn't know it yet, but they've made 3 critical mistakes," she said, her eyes gleaming with carefully contained excitement. "First, they assumed our technology matches our appearance. Second, they broadcast their fleet formations for everyone to see. And third," she paused, looking around the room, "they showed us their shields." The hologram shifted to show the quantum cannon's inner workings. Their entire fleet uses the same shield frequency. It's their standard, probably hasn't changed in centuries. Why would it? Nobody has ever beaten it. Dr. Turner's smile grew wider. Until now. A new message from the Empire flashed across the screens. The universal translator worked quickly, converting their arrogant words. "Your pathetic species will serve as an example to others who resist our might. One ship, we will crush it and display its ruins across 1,000 worlds." Admiral Stone turned to the assembled leaders. "They're coming. Their pride demands it now. They'll send a fleet to make an example of us." He nodded to Captain Reynolds. "That's exactly what we want." Jane stepped up to the hologram, studying the Empire's shield configurations. "How many ships should we expect, Admiral?" "Intelligence suggests 50. Enough to make it look like they're being generous in not sending their full fleet. Enough to make our defeat seem inevitable." The room grew quiet as the implications sank in. 50 Imperial warships against Earth's single vessel. On paper, it looked like suicide. But paper didn't know about the quantum cannon. "The Defiant will be ready in 3 days," Jane announced, her voice firm. "My crew is already chosen. We've been training in secret for months, running simulations based on the Empire's known tactics." She turned to face the gathered leaders. "They expect us to fight like them, to follow their rules of engagement. We won't." Dr. Turner added, "The quantum cannon is installed and calibrated. One shot will cascade through their entire formation, turning their shields into a weakness instead of a strength." She looked at Jane. "But you'll only get one shot, Captain. Their arrogance is our advantage, but it won't last long." Admiral Stone stood, his presence commanding attention. "The Empire believes they're coming to crush a primitive species. They're wrong. They're coming to learn a lesson about humanity." He turned to Jane. "Captain Reynolds, your orders are simple. When they come, show them why Earth only needed one warship." The assembled leaders rose, one by one, offering salutes to the young captain. They had made their choice. Earth would not bow, would not surrender, would not give the Empire the satisfaction of an easy victory. As Jane left the war room, she felt the weight of humanity's future on her shoulders. But she wasn't afraid. The Empire had warned Earth, thinking to inspire fear. Instead, they had revealed their weaknesses. Now it was Earth's turn to send a warning. And this one would be written in the light of dying shields and the silence of a humbled empire. The EDF Defiant hung in space, its dark hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Workers in spacesuits swarmed around the massive ship like busy bees, adding the final layers of stealth coating. From the observation deck of the orbital station, Captain Jane Reynolds watched her ship transform. "Beautiful, isn't she?" Chief Engineer Mike Thompson stood beside her, his weathered face reflecting in the reinforced glass. "The Empire won't know what hit them." Literally, they won't even see us coming. Jane nodded, studying the special coating that would make the Defiant nearly invisible to Imperial scanners. How's the crew training going? They're the best Earth has to offer, Captain. Mike pulled up a tablet showing the latest simulation results. We've been running drills 20 hours a day. Every person aboard will know this ship better than their own home. The tablet displayed profiles of her chosen crew. Lieutenant Tom Walker at weapons, the man who could calculate targeting solutions faster than a computer. Maria Garcia at navigation, whose unconventional flight patterns had confused even the training eye. John Baker at communications, who could crack any encryption the simulators threw at him. Down in the ship's main hangar, the quantum cannon received its final calibrations. Dr. Turner worked alongside the engineering team, her fingers flying over control panels as she made microscopic adjustments. The weapon looked deceptively simple, just a plain metal cylinder with subtle blue lights pulsing along its length. Power output stable at 99.9%. Dr. Turner announced, wiping sweat from her forehead. The Empire's shields won't stand a chance. In the training room, the crew ran another battle simulation. The holographic displays showed 50 Imperial ships in their standard attack formation. The Defiant's bridge crew worked in perfect synchronization, their movements precise and practiced. Enemy ships at bearing 180. Lieutenant Walker called out, shields operating at predicted frequencies. Maria's hands danced over the navigation controls. Evasive pattern Delta 7 ready. They'll never expect a ship this size to move like this. John monitored the communication channels. Imperial chatter suggests they still think we're primitive. Their guard is down. Jane walked through the simulation room, watching her crew work. They had trained for every possible scenario. They knew the Empire's tactics better than the Empire did. Where Imperial crews relied on overwhelming force and standard battle plans, the Defiant's crew learned to think differently. In his office at Global Defense Command, Admiral Stone received the latest intelligence reports. The Empire's fleet was gathering, just as predicted. Their arrogance showed in every communication they intercepted. They weren't even trying to hide their movements. Let them come, he muttered, reviewing the Defiant's readiness reports. Every system was testing beyond expectations. Every crew member was performing at peak efficiency. Earth's single warship was ready. Back aboard the Defiant, Jane called her senior staff for one final meeting before launch. The ship's conference room held a simple table and chairs, no fancy decorations or Imperial-style luxuries. Tomorrow, we take this ship out for her first real flight, Jane said, looking at each crew member in turn. The Empire thinks they know what we're capable of. They're wrong. She activated a hologram showing their planned route through the solar system. We'll use Saturn's rings for cover, waiting for the perfect moment. One shot is all we need. Mike raised his coffee mug in a toast. To humanity's best-kept secret. To showing the Empire why quality beats quantity, Maria added. To the look on their faces when they realized their mistake, Tom grinned. Jane smiled at her crew's confidence. The Empire thought Earth backward for building just one ship. They didn't understand that humanity had poured everything they had. Every resource, every brilliant mind, every innovative idea, into this single vessel. The Defiant wasn't just a warship. It was humanity's statement to the galaxy. Underestimate us at your peril. As the final hours of preparation ticked away, Jane took one last look at her ship from the observation deck. Tomorrow, they would launch. Tomorrow, they would begin their mission. Tomorrow, they would teach the Empire the true meaning of Earth's warning. The Imperial fleet arrived with all the subtlety of a fireworks display. 50 massive warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Mars orbit, their shields glowing with bright purple energy. Each ship was at least 5 times larger than the Defiant, their hulls decorated with elaborate designs showing their battle history. Hidden in Saturn's rings, the Defiant's crew watched in silence. Ice and rock particles drifted around their ship, the special coating making them just another shadow among the debris. On the bridge, Captain Jane Reynolds studied the enemy fleet's formation on her display screen. "Right on schedule," she whispered, "and just as arrogant as we expected." The Imperial fleet's commander wasted no time. His transmission reached Earth on all frequencies, his holographic image appearing in every home, office, and command center on the planet. He had chosen to appear human, a mockery meant to insult Earth further. "I am Imperial Commander Thomas Gray," he announced, his fake human face wearing a condescending smile. "Your planet has been granted the honor of becoming part of the Galactic Empire. Surrender now, and we will be merciful." In Global Defense Command, Admiral Stone watched the transmission without expression. Around him, his staff maintained radio silence, following the carefully planned protocol. Earth's response would come, but not in words. Back on the Defiant, Lieutenant Walker kept his hands steady over the weapons console. "Their shields are all synchronized, Captain, just like our intel suggested. One frequency across all 50 ships." "Overconfident idiots," Maria muttered from her navigation station. "They're not even running standard security scans." John Baker monitored the Imperial communications. "They're talking about us, Captain. Making jokes about Earth's pathetic single ship. They think we're hiding in Earth's orbit." Jane allowed herself a small smile. The Empire's greatest weakness wasn't their technology. It was their inability to imagine that a primitive species could think differently than they did. Commander Gray's face appeared again, his patience wearing thin at Earth's silence. "Your defiance is pointless. Where is your mighty warship?" "Hidden behind her moon. Cowering in your planet's shadow." He laughed, the sound echoing across all channels. "Show yourselves and face us with honor." "Honor." Mike Thompson snorted from his engineering station. "Rich coming from bullies picking on what they think is a weaker species." Jane raised her hand for silence as the Imperial fleet began to move. Just as their intelligence had predicted, the 50 ships arranged themselves in their standard attack formation, a perfect hemisphere facing Earth. Their synchronized shields created a massive purple energy barrier, a display of power meant to terrify their opponents. "They're launching fighter craft," Walker reported. "Standard Imperial doctrine. Soften up the target before the main assault." Hundreds of smaller ships poured from the Imperial vessels, their formations precise and predictable. They had done this thousands of times on thousands of worlds. Why change what had always worked? "All stations, report," Jane ordered quietly. "Engineering ready. Quantum cannon at full power. Navigation set. Course plotted through their blind spots. Weapons locked. One shot is all we need." Communications monitoring. "They still have no idea we're here." Jane took a deep breath, looking at each member of her bridge crew. In their eyes, she saw not fear but determination. The Empire had come to crush a primitive species. Instead, they had walked into a trap centuries in the making. "Send word to Admiral Stone," she ordered. "Operation Hubris is go." As her message was relayed to Earth, Jane watched the Imperial fleet continue their predictable approach. They would not fire on Earth immediately. Their protocol demanded they give their victims time to panic, to realize the hopelessness of their situation. The Empire had perfected the art of terror over thousands of years and countless conquests, but they had never faced humanity before. The EDF Defiant burst from Saturn's rings like a ghost emerging from mist. Ice particles scattered in its wake as the ship accelerated to attack speed. On the bridge, Captain Jane Reynolds watched the distance to the Imperial fleet tick down on her display. "All hands, battle stations," she ordered, her voice calm and steady. "This is what we trained for." The Imperial fleet's reaction was exactly as predicted, nothing at first. Their sensors registered the approaching ship, but the commanders were too busy laughing to care. One small vessel against 50 capital ships. It seemed like suicide. "They're sending us a message," John reported from communications, trying not to smile. "Commander Gray says, and I quote, 'Your bravery is admirable, but foolish. Witness true power.' The Imperial ships maintained their perfect formation, their purple shields creating a beautiful but vulnerable web of energy between them. They didn't bother to adjust their positions or power up their main weapons. Why waste energy on one primitive ship? Navigation. Execute pattern Ghostwalker, Jane commanded. Maria's fingers danced across her controls. The Defiant began a series of movements that no ship its size should have been able to perform. It spun, twisted, and changed direction in ways that defied Imperial combat doctrine. The enemy fleet's targeting computers couldn't predict where the Earth ship would be next. "They're scrambling their fighters," Walker reported from weapons. "But they're confused. Our movement patterns don't match anything in their combat database." In the Imperial flagship, Commander Gray watched with growing irritation as the Earth vessel approached. "Impossible," he muttered as the Defiant pulled off another physics-defying maneuver. "No ship that size can move like that." The Imperial fighters moved to intercept, but their programmed attack patterns were useless against the Defiant's unconventional flight path. They fired volleys of energy weapons, but hit nothing but empty space. 20 seconds to optimal firing range, Walker announced. Jane nodded, watching the Imperial fleet's formation. They still hadn't broken their perfect hemisphere, still hadn't realized that their greatest strength was about to become their greatest weakness. "Their commanders are arguing," John reported, listening to Imperial communications. "Some want to break formation. Gray is ordering them to hold position. Says he won't let one primitive ship make them look foolish." 15 seconds, Walker counted down. In Global Defense Command, Admiral Stone watched the battle unfold through long-range sensors. "Come on, Jane," he whispered. "Show them what one ship can do." 10 seconds. The Imperial fleet finally began powering up their main weapons. Too late. Their massive cannons were designed to hit large, slow-moving targets, not a ship that moved like the Defiant. 5 seconds. Commander Gray's face appeared on the Defiant's main screen, his fake human features twisted with rage. "You dare to mock the Imperial fleet? We will destroy." "Fire," Jane ordered. The quantum cannon activated. A beam of pure white energy lanced out from the Defiant, striking the nearest Imperial ship's shields. But instead of being stopped, the beam changed. It split, following the energy patterns of the linked Imperial shields. In less than a second, the quantum cascade raced across the entire fleet's defense network. The beautiful purple shields flickered once, twice, and then collapsed completely. "Direct hit," Walker shouted. "All enemy shields down." The cascade worked perfectly. On every Imperial ship, alarms blared. Emergency systems failed to restart their shields. Backup generators overloaded trying to restore power. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Imperial fleet was defenseless. "Send them our message," Jane ordered, her eyes fixed on the now vulnerable fleet. John opened a channel. The words that Earth had prepared for this moment transmitted to every Imperial ship. "The primitive ones send their regards." Commander Gray's hologram sputtered and died as his ship's systems continued to fail. The mighty Imperial fleet hung in space, their elaborate hull decorations now just paint on vulnerable metal. The battle wasn't over. But in that moment, as 50 mighty warships drifted powerless in space, the galaxy learned an important lesson. Never underestimate the species that only needed one ship. Chaos erupted across the Imperial fleet. Without their shields, the mighty warships were like giants with glass bones, powerful but suddenly vulnerable. On the Defiant's bridge, Captain Jane Reynolds watched as the enemy commanders made their next critical mistake. "They're breaking formation," Maria reported from navigation. "Every ship for themselves." The Imperial fleet scattered in 50 different directions. Centuries of relying on their shields had left them without any other defense strategies. Some ships tried to run, others attempted to power up their weapons, and a few brave ones turned to face the Defiant. "Commander Gray is ordering them to regroup," John announced from communications. "But no one's listening anymore. Their command structure is falling apart." Jane nodded. "Exactly as planned." "Mr. Walker," Target their engines. Non-lethal shots only. We're here to teach them a lesson, not start a war. The Defiant moved like a dancer through the scattered Imperial fleet. Each shot from its conventional weapons struck with surgical precision, disabling engines and weapon systems, but avoiding crew areas. The Empire's mighty warships, built for grand battles with their impenetrable shields, had no defense against such precise attacks. Imperial fighters are retreating to their carriers, Walker reported, his fingers steady on the weapons controls. They've never trained for combat without shield support. In Global Defense Command, Admiral Stone watched the battle with quiet satisfaction. Send word to all Earth defense stations, he ordered. Operation Hubris is proceeding as planned. Phase 2 is authorized. Back in space, the Defiant continued its work. Jane's crew operated like a well-oiled machine, each person anticipating the other's moves. Maria's unconventional flight patterns kept them one step ahead of enemy targeting systems. Walker's precise shots disabled ship after ship without causing a single casualty. "Captain," John called out, "we're picking up some interesting chatter from the Imperial ships. Their crews, they're impressed. Some are even cheering us on secretly." Mike's voice came up from engineering. "Quantum cannon is still running perfectly, Captain. They won't be raising those shields anytime soon." On the main screen, they watched as another Imperial ship's engines went dark. The once mighty vessels now drifted helplessly in space, their crews forced to watch as a single Earth ship systematically disabled their entire fleet. "Message from Commander Gray," John reported. He's requesting a ceasefire." The bridge crew fell silent. This was the moment they had trained for. Not just victory, but the right kind of victory. One that would make the Empire think twice about underestimating primitive species again. "Put him on screen," Jane ordered. Gray's hologram appeared, his artificial human face now stripped away to reveal his true alien features. "Captain Reynolds," he said, his voice lacking its earlier arrogance. "You have impressed us. Perhaps we were hasty in our judgment of Earth." "Perhaps," Jane replied calmly. "Do you understand now why we only built one ship?" "Yes," Gray admitted. "Quality over quantity. Innovation over tradition. I have much to report to the Imperial Council about this encounter." Walker's console beeped. "Captain, all enemy ships are now disabled. Their weapons and engines are offline. Only life support and basic systems remain functional." Jane stood from her command chair, looking at the scattered Imperial fleet on her view screen. "Commander Gray, here are our terms. You will take your fleet and return to Imperial space. You will report that Earth is not to be trifled with. And you will remember that the next time you encounter a primitive species with only one ship, that might be exactly what they want you to think." Gray nodded, his previous arrogance replaced with grudging respect. "The Empire will not forget this lesson, Captain Reynolds, though I suspect some of us," he glanced around at his own bridge crew, "are grateful for having learned it." The battle was over. Earth's single warship had defeated the mighty Imperial fleet not through overwhelming force, but through careful planning, innovative thinking, and the perfect exploitation of enemy arrogance. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, other civilizations were about to learn an important lesson about judging species by the size of their fleet. 3 days after the battle, the EDF Defiant stood watch as the last Imperial ships limped away from Earth's solar system. Their mighty engines, restored to minimal power, pushed them slowly back toward Imperial space. Captain Jane Reynolds watched from her command chair, her crew still at their stations, until the last enemy ship disappeared from their sensors. "Last Imperial vessel has cleared the Kuiper Belt," Maria announced from navigation. "They're gone, Captain." A cheer went up across the bridge. 3 days of tense monitoring ended with humanity's first major victory in space, but Jane knew this was just the beginning. "Message from Admiral Stone," John called out. "They're ready for us at Global Defense Command. Time to go home." The Defiant turned toward Earth, its dark hull reflecting the distant sunlight. As they approached their home planet, hundreds of smaller ships rose up from the surface to escort them, Earth's primitive fleet that the Empire had never bothered to scan for. In the command center, Admiral Stone waited with Dr. Turner and the world's leaders. The massive screens showed the Imperial Council's emergency broadcast, intercepted just hours ago. The Empire hereby declares Earth a protected zone, the Imperial Chancellor announced, his face unable to hide his shock at recent events. Any aggressive action against this world will be considered an act of war against the Empire itself. Quite a change in attitude, Dr. Turner remarked with a smile. Amazing what one ship can do to change their minds. The Defiant docked at the orbital station, its crew emerging to a hero's welcome. But there was no time for long celebrations. Work was already beginning on Earth's next project. In a private meeting room, Jane sat with Admiral Stone and the other key players in Operation Hubris. "The Empire will be back," she said, looking at the preliminary designs on the table. "Not as enemies, but as observers. They'll want to know how we did it." "Let them look," Stone replied. "The quantum cannon was just the beginning." Dr. Turner's team has developed 3 new technologies that even our own scientists are still trying to understand. Dr. Turner nodded, pulling up holographic displays of new ship designs. The Empire thought they were dealing with primitives who could only build one ship. They never asked why we chose to build just one. The design showed smaller, faster vessels, ships that could move in ways the Empire thought impossible, weapons that could adapt to any defense. Earth had been preparing not just for this battle, but for its emergence onto the galactic stage. "Reports are coming in from across the galaxy," John added, checking his datapad. "Other species are starting to resist Imperial expansion. Our victory showed them it's possible." Mike Thompson laughed from his seat. "Not bad for a bunch of primitives with one ship, eh?" The room's main screen showed the Defiant in its dock, repair crews already upgrading its systems with new improvements learned from the battle. The ship that had changed humanity's future looked deceptively simple from the outside. Exactly as intended. "The Empire made a classic mistake," Jane said, standing to address the room. "They thought quantity meant superiority. They never considered that building one perfect weapon could be better than building 1,000 average ones." Admiral Stone raised his coffee mug in a toast. "To humanity's future among the stars, and to teaching the galaxy that sometimes less really is more." As the sun set over Earth that evening, news broadcasts celebrated the victory, but in secure facilities around the world, work continued. The Empire had learned its lesson about underestimating humanity, but they weren't the only ones watching. Earth's next ships would be ready soon. And this time, the galaxy would know exactly why humanity only needed one ship to make its point. Because sometimes, one perfect warning was all you needed to change the universe.